7:37 in the AM 560 traffic center. Here is Jim Telemonte.
In northwest Indiana, 94 is a mess right now. Eastbound traffic is jammed. Ripley to pass the toll road with a crash in the left lane. Westbound, 2 left lanes are blocked at the toll road. You're seeing delays from the Lake and Porter County line to that point. And on 8094, traffic is heavy on the westbound side. Broadway to before Klein with a crash in the right lane. Kennedy to Indianapolis Boulevard, where the left lane is blocked with a collision. And Calumet Avenue to Torrance, where 3 left lanes are closed. It's 56 minutes from the toll road to the Bishop Ford Freeway. On the inbound Eisenhower, the travel time is now 42 minutes from 390 to downtown. That's traffic. I'm Jim Telemonte on AM 560, The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. In our AM 560 Weather Center, bitter cold today. Clouds and sunshine, a high near 15. We have sun and 1 above at O'Hare. Next news coming up at 8. Breaking news as it happens, and Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
From the Matrix Home Solutions Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, and your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com.
Mike Madigan runs the Democratic House floor for 30-plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when you're moving out. I said when you're moving out.
That song means it's time for our weekly hit with Ted Dabrowski, president of Wirepoints.org, where you go for great research and commentary on all things Illinois policy related. Ted, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. One of the guys not moving out, Ted Dabrowski.
Good morning, Dan. Good morning, Amy. I'm still here.
Yes, you're still
here.
Any
plans, though, to move?
No plans. I like it here. We're going to fight.
Lash to the masts, Ted Dabrowski. Yeah. Okay, so Ted, $1.9 trillion in funny money from the feds. That seems to be imminent. The disbursement to take some time, but included in that will be some level of bailout money for states generally and terribly run states like Illinois specifically. Why would we and why would you oppose Illinois getting whatever it can get from the federal government, our tax dollars back?
Yeah, well, we've been doing research at Wirepoints on this, and you're starting to hear a lot of commentary from economists on both sides of the aisle. You've got Larry Summers, which was Clinton's Secretary of Treasury, and of course people on the right saying, "Hey, wait a minute, we don't really need this money. Have you not looked at the numbers lately?" So at Wirepoints, we've started to compile all the numbers state by state, looking at the revenue numbers that they had before COVID, looking at the reserves states had. We're looking at the amount of money they got from the CARES Act. And when you start to look at everything, and also taking into account that 2020 for a calendar year wasn't nearly as bad as people thought it would be, suddenly you realize that there's just not a need for that money. Even the blue states, like California, far outperformed those dire projections that came out back in April and May. So you've got California doing better. They actually had more revenues in 2020, tax revenues, than in 2019. And a place like Illinois only came up about 1% short. So when you run all the numbers, just not needed.
Well, but we're 1% short of projections. Okay, fine. But I mean, we have, $250-300 billion in aggregate debt and about $30 billion in assets. That's a problem. So why don't we just take what we can get?
Well, yeah. Now you're hitting a different point, right? So in theory, right, Biden's blue state bailout is supposed to be for COVID issues, but when you strip back the COVID issues, you'll see that most states are doing well, and what's left is the pre-pandemic mess, and that's the real problem. Is places like New Jersey, Connecticut, and Illinois, who survived the pandemic relatively well, and I'm speaking in relative terms, especially when you take into account reserves for some states and CARES Act for others. They don't need the money. What they need the money for is a bailout of their pension mess, of their mismanagement, of their just gross governance.
Yeah, semantics, right? What's the big deal? Let's take whatever money we can. If we had Mexican drug cartels give us money, we should take it. Why don't we take money wherever we can get money, right?
Well, that's what's happening with everybody, right? If you get a stimulus check, people are taking it whether they need it or not, and a lot of people are getting it. And this is what happens in this environment. Money just starts flowing out of nowhere. It was the case back with Obama. It was Obama money. That's what they called it, Obama money, and now it's going to be Biden money. And, of course, it was Trump money as well. So when this money starts to flow, we lose sight of what real finances look like. And that's why economists on both sides are starting to warn, wait a minute, we could blow up this economy in the wrong way because we're starting to grow again. It's fascinating. The bottom quintile in 2020 got transfer payments of $45,000 annually. So you're talking about a massive transfer of money, and that's why spending has been strong. And this is frankly why the money's not needed.
Well, and then you have governors like Kristi Noem, and I don't know if there's others that their state has a budget surplus, so they're sending back the money. They're not accepting it.
Well, and it makes sense, right? I mean, in theory, but to Dan's point, there's a lot of takers now, and they'll take the money no matter what.
J.B. Pritzker will send dessert back before he sends that money from D.C. back.
Hey-oh. Yes, that's true.
But I mean, and why shouldn't he, right? I mean, again, what's the downside for Illinois to take money from wherever you get? If Kristi Noem wants to send her money that South Dakota is scheduled to get to Illinois, we'll take that too. I mean, I guess my question is, why shouldn't they? Why would anybody oppose Illinois doing that?
Well, they won't. They won't. And the thing is that this money is distributed on a proportional basis based on population. So, it behooves every state to say, well, hey, we're going to have to pay for it later in higher taxes or whatever it is. So we might as well take the money now. And there's no doubt that Pritzker would just take every penny of this. Don't forget, somebody like Lightfoot will take it too. She, the state has been spending more and more money at CPS. With the raises they've given at CPS. Pritzker gave AFSCME big raises last year. So yeah, they need the money. They want the money.
And the point here is, you mentioned the transfer payments to the lowest quintile. This is to make everybody comfortable, so they are, happy enough to wallow in their current state, whether it's restrictions on their freedom or economic or individual. They just, relatively comfort. They're relatively taken care of by the government, so there's no need to get ornery with the status quo.
Well, this is the problem, right? Is that people don't realize that it's just doing damage, right? It's like a drug. You take it, you enjoy it, but you don't realize what harm it's doing you. And it's not just the bailout, right? They want to. I don't think they'll be successful, but they want to put a $15 minimum wage into this bill. And imagine making you're not just making Seattle and all those places pay $15, although they're happy to do it. You're making Carmi and Carbondale and other places pay $15. I said a month, $15 an hour. For costs they could never afford. Carmi can't afford to pay $15 an hour to somebody for a sandwich shop. No way.
Right, and obviously even within those enlightened urban centers, there's businesses that are differently situated. It's easy for Amazon, not so easy for the corner diner. Let me ask you about the only issue that actually is interesting to me at all in Illinois, and that is the opportunity scholarships. The tax credit scholarship program. So this, once it was passed and signed into law by Governor Rauner, has a 5-year horizon, 5-year sunset. But it's in the crosshairs of the teachers' unions and the Marxists in Springfield every year. And so your assessment on the ongoing establishment of the tax credit scholarship program, are we getting to where there's a big enough constituency, enough kids and families benefiting, that it's going to be difficult even by politicians who are beholden to the teachers' unions to undo it?
Well, I want to think that yes. And the reason why is because you've had a lot of minority kids benefit from this. This Empower Illinois and other groups that have helped this scholarship become a reality. It's really helping a lot of kids get out of the CPS, and we know there's 1,000 reasons why they should get out of CPS and go to the Catholic schools or other private schools. But I want to say that we might have reached critical mass. It's always in doubt, of course, in Illinois, right? The power of the unions to break these kind of things is strong, but they haven't broken it yet, right? And this is Rauner's, maybe Rauner's only good achievement when he was in office, and they've had a couple years to break it, to unwind it, and they failed. And part of that is because I think a decent amount of the black community, some of the black legislators, and certainly the Hispanic legislators know there's a lot of value to giving kids a choice. This is empowering parents, empowering Hispanic and minority parents for the first time in this state and in Chicago in a long, long time. It's one of the few good things left.
What about the reopening of businesses, the reopening of schools going on, mainly in Chicago because Chicago is the laggard? Your assessment of the sort of damage that has been done, that will continue to be done, perhaps in smaller doses, but damage nonetheless, and the amount of recovery time you're looking at for the city center, for example.
Well, just speaking of giving kids school choice, right? It's been disastrous for the kids at CPS who've been out of school for a year, pretty much.
332 days, but I'm not counting.
You're not counting,
No.
Yes. And you're talking about over 300,000 kids. It's been disastrous. And what's sad about this is that you can count on your hands the number of kids under the age of 17 who've died from COVID. It's 3, I think 4. And those are sad, but that's the reality. And then when you count the number of adults under the age of 50 who've died without comorbidities, it's really in relative terms a small number, and yet we've destroyed a lot of kids and a lot of families' livelihoods. So I don't think this new CTU deal has done any good. Maybe kids will be in class in March, maybe.
Well,
but then it's summertime again.
Yeah, and it's 20%, only that. Like 70,000 kids signed up, which is nothing. And folks, this isn't a Monday through Friday thing. This is just hybrid learning 2 days a week. That's what we're fighting for.
Well, Amy, what's horrible about all this, and Dan, you've touched on this too, is the press has made a disaster of the fear mongering. I saw a sign of a teacher, wearing her red shirt and saying, they're trying to kill my kids or something like that. And it's fear. And when you play that out all over the place, it's really hard for families to say, oh yeah, I'll go back in tomorrow. And let me just remind you, you're asking about the statewide. A place like Deerfield, right? Deerfield is, I think they spend whatever it is, the 10th most in the state on a per student basis to teach, and they have not been in class either since March of last year. So it's across the board, right? A struggling, failing school like CPS, and a highly successful one like Deerfield in Highland Park.
Well, no, psychosis is not bounded by geography. There's no question. I'm a nattering nabob of negativism when it comes to Illinois. I'm not as optimistic as I should be, according to some. So you're more optimistic than I am. You're a happy-go-lucky kind of sort, Ted. So, tell me and our listeners something to look forward to. What's on the horizon that's good news, that's a good initiative, that's a positive movement? Give us something to grab onto, those still lashed to the mast with you in Illinois.
Yeah, so Dan, let me just slightly change what you're saying. I'm optimistic once the what hits the fan. So I'm not optimistic that we're going to turn this thing around tomorrow because our new leadership isn't going to do anything new. Lori Lightfoot isn't going to do anything constructive. It's so far everything I see is destructive. Where I'm optimistic is that the math at some point won't work anymore, and how this thing falls apart. And I don't want to see it fall apart, right? I would dream of seeing suddenly everybody become reformers and we fix everything tomorrow. It's not going to happen. But I do think that at some point, the math stops working, and that's when finally we have a chance at reforms because there won't be any other choice. If the place is bankrupt, they'll have to do something new. So that's kind of the perspective we take on it.
So when does that watershed moment happen? Within a range. I mean, if the way I read the filings from the police and fire pension systems in Chicago Police Pension Fund will be the first to capsize, and that is potentially months in the offing, or maybe a little over a year in the offing. If there is not some Deus ex machina infusion of cash into that fund, firefighters are right behind. I mean, they're both less than 25% funded. and this is in a relatively robust market. We'll see if there's a downturn in 21. In 22, more likely than 21. But for you, there's a lot of people in the center right have been talking about the math, and myself included. The math doesn't work, and the math doesn't work. It is inexorable, but it's hard to pinpoint it. And people sort of holding on for the best scenario, which be structural reform, which is not going to happen, or the second or the best scenario, I guess, is the system to fall under its own weight so that it can be reformed in that way, because it needs to be reformed ultimately. And if you're not going to take the stairs, then I guess you have to take the window. But that's been said for a decade. Republican politicians, for almost decades now, plural. And so when do you see something like that, unfortunately, a pension fund capsizing, for example, happening that would really usher a moment of clarity into the political and policy arena?
Well, Dan, you're right that we've been warning about this danger of a financial collapse for some time, but I think we've always underestimated, stupidly, the power of Madigan and others to find the next can kick over and over and over. They always found it. But what's interesting about today versus 10 years ago is that the number of options for can kicks are gone. And what's fascinating about today is that everybody's looking at Illinois now. Now, unfortunately, we have a Biden administration that would be supportive of bailouts of some kind. But the rating agencies are looking at Illinois. We're the national outlier. We're the extreme one. And so the number of can kicks available to Welch and his team are almost zero, right? They couldn't even get the tax hike done. They'll come for another one. But the games they can play with not funding pensions and doing things like that, they're over. And so if you look at today's world, there's two things that are different. The finances are absolutely out of control. Pritzker and those guys, they don't have control of the finances. The outside market does. The bond market has control of the finances, and the federal government has control of Illinois' finances. Illinois does not have its own control. Number two, record out-migration. Unless they build a wall around Illinois, people will continue to leave, and others won't come in. And those two factors right there are the ones that have changed the dynamics between a decade ago and today. And depending on how fast those things move will determine how quickly Illinois runs out of cash and is forced to do something different.
Ted Dabrowski, president at Wirepoints, wirepoints.org. Ted, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
It seems like everyone is on a complicated diet these days. Gluten-free, keto, metabolic, sugar-free. And with these diets comes special dietary protocol and food products. You can find plenty of advice on your social media sites, but you need expertise to purchase the right food items. A visit to Lil's Dietary Specialty Shop is necessary to shop the best food choices for a medical diet or health plan. Lil's Dietary Specialty Shop stocks all the hard-to-find foods you're looking for, like wheat and dairy alternatives, sugar-free baking mixes, healthy snacks, and more. There's no longer a reason to put off that diet you're supposed to be on when you have Lil's. The staff has personally researched and vetted each item in the store and has plenty of choices in stock.
Lil's Dietary Specialty Shop on 111th Street in Mount Greenwood on the south side of Chicago. Stop in and shop in person or order online at lilsdietary.com and get your items shipped right to your home. lilsdietary.com. Shop, learn, and be healthy.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. It's a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
I'm Frank Vance, co-owner of Egan Vance Insurance Agency on Chicago's Northwest Side.